Board of Education to order. Rachel, please collect the roll.
Mrs. Milius? Here. Mr. Hoffman?
Here.
Mr. Updike?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second. It's moved and seconded for approval of the agenda. Any comments or discussion? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Huffman?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell? Yes. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Milius? Yes. Approved.
Very good. Moving on, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Welcome, everyone. Just to do I think we all spent some time at the National School Board Conference weekend before last. And one of the things I wanted to bring back and start doing at the beginning of our meeting is just to review the mission and vision statements, just so that it can level set our minds and thinking as we start off every meeting. So our mission is, let's start with our mission is to maintain small town values and empower each student to achieve world-class results. The mission is to be a school district that engages students to learn, create, adapt, and succeed in an ever-changing world. So keeping that in mind as we move through this, through our agenda this evening. Business with individuals. We do have one card. Diana Roth. Just a reminder that we don't discuss individuals, personnel. That happens through executive session, and you do have about 3 minutes. So go ahead, welcome.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. First of all, thank you all for the time of your, the donation of your time that you guys all spend in those seats up there. So I can know that it's difficult. And so I appreciate you guys serving on behalf of my family and my children. So thank you. I saw that you guys had the schedule or a subject of the schedule on the agenda this evening. And so this is kind of schedule related. I wanted to just bring up a conversation point, just something to think about for future schedule conversations. There is a holiday that we just went through this last weekend for many people, and I realize that that is not necessarily associated with the school, which understandably. However, when we're talking about taking days and observing days, I thought it would be helpful to point out that we're not just here to serve the students in an academic, we are here to serve them as an academic level. I think it's important to keep church and state separate. I also think it's meaningful to serve your demographic. I have some statistics because I was just getting curious of what is the statistic behind people that observe, say, Good Friday. According to a CBS poll, I believe it was 78% of Americans are Christian. 73% of the Midwest is Christian. 76% of Kansans are Christian. These are two different resources, so the statistics obviously can vary. I don't bring this up to say we should embrace any one religion. I bring it up to bring up the point of serve your demographic. I realize that the school can't observe a holiday and call it Good Friday, but if it could be tied in with some other observances, there's a reason we have certain breaks when they are tied together. I think it's just worth tying into that conversation when schedule is being discussed. There's a reason the federal government observes Christmas as a federal holiday. It recognizes its population and knows that that's something that its demographic is going to observe. I don't know very many families that go home and have a traditional President's Day dinner with President's Day activities and President's Day gifts. I would gather to say there might be more people that go home and actively observe a holiday like Good Friday. and spend it with their family. You had mentioned your mission statement, keep those small town values. I think this kind of ties in with that. Again, separating the church and the state, I understand that. But if we're talking about adding days to the schedule, 4 days off, or and this isn't just for the students. I think the staff should be a part of this conversation as well. So the staff can go home and be with their families and really keep those small town values. So again, just a point of conversation that I was hoping you guys would all consider. Thank you.
No, we usually don't engage with people, but I think is it next year or the next year's calendar that Good Friday is,
24, 25.
it is the day off in the next one, so.
Yep.
It's either the Friday or the Monday. One of those 2 days is on 24, 25 would be a day, non. Yeah, and 24, 25, one of the, it's either Good Friday or the Monday after Good Friday. I'm not right off the top of my head, know which one is a actual, non-student attendance day.
I did see that on the calendar that 24, 25, it is the Friday before Easter, which would be Good Friday.
Okay.
But I'm assuming that was just by default, not intentional. And I didn't know if that was something that was going to occur moving forward or not. Again, just a point of conversation for when you're discussing the schedule.
Yes, and that's something that, that you noted, and later on tonight in the agenda for 23, 24 school year, there are some possible options that I want to ask the board if they're interested in to align where we can with that 24, 25 calendar. And before we actually aligned it with specifics, I want to find out if there was interest from them in allowing us to put something together and bring it back with specifics the way they'd like to see it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Moving on to the consent agenda, which again consists of approval of the minutes from the March 6th and 27th, 2023 meetings, clerk's report, treasurer's report, payroll and claims, personnel, Spring Hill Elementary and Spring Hill Middle School 2023 improvement projects in the kitchen that we've had a couple discussions around, Spring Hill Elementary School carpet upgrades, summer maintenance projects, again, a couple conversations, and then Spring Hill Middle School carpet and luxury vinyl tile upgrades or additional summer maintenance projects. That is the consent agenda. Any questions or comments? Sorry.
Let's say it's unfortunate that Lisa Conzum is moving on. I understand she may be a principal at Vassar Linwood. So
Oh, really?
It's unfortunate we couldn't find a place for her here. She's been with us a long time and
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second,
It's moved in second for approval of the consent agenda. Any final comments or questions? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius, yes, Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
approved.
Very good. Moving on to good news, recognitions and announcements. Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, a couple quick notes, getting into the home stretch of the school year. We will have a lot of recognition banquets, especially for our graduates coming up in sometime in May, but I did, want to throw out a nugget. Every day now, we get a lot of good news on different scholarships that have been awarded. And one that came across in the last couple of weeks is to Jared Reyes Alvarado, who is a senior, and he received designation recently as a 2023 Schmidt Foundation Scholar. And as a result of that designation, will receive a 4-year full ride scholarship to Fort Hays State University. A couple weeks ago, again, the university officials came down, and then with some officials from the high school, surprised him with an announcement, that day. So again, congratulations to him. Always good to recognize our outstanding students and their performance. And then before we do our video for Spring Hill Middle School of what's going on, we thought that again, we have some core value awards to two individuals that we would like to present at this time. And I'm going to allow, we have the principal from Dayton Creek Elementary School. I don't know what it is they're bringing up here towards us, but I think Deputy Ramos did check that out. But they're going to come forward now, and I think Mrs. Sly is going to tell us about her core values honorees this evening.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna stand here and talk. So, as opening day for country, we wanted to leave a commemorative something. And we weren't sure what it would be.
Can you use the mic? We're having a hard time here.
You won't be on the lights. Okay, with opening Dayton Creek, we wanted to leave something, some kind of a commemorative project or do something fun so that we would always have a memory of our first year. And these lovely ladies worked together and came up with this wonderful idea of a quilt. Did I ever think or know that it would be this large? No. Did they? No. And it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. This became a project all year long in art. Mrs. Snetchler took her students, and each grade level had a different type of art that went along with what they were learning, and it became part of the quilt. And then, of course, we had to add in our staff members as well. So each staff member put in a quilt square as well. And this lovely thing will be hung up in the entryway of our school. So when you come in, it will be behind you so that as you leave, you will see it. We have had this quilt since January, trying to figure out how to hang it or what would be best for it. And I finally reached out to some parents and said, anybody out there is a carpenter, would like to help solve this problem, not a problem, but this wonderful project. And have a family that is taking us up on that. They're working on coming up with a project that we will have it in a frame, have some plexiglass in front of it so it'll protect it forever and it'll be nice and solid. But these two lovely ladies have done enormous amounts of work on this quilt. And I want to recognize them because when I say world-class staff, it truly is world-class staff. This took a lot of time and dedication and maybe fingers with needles, I don't know, but I tell you, Angie told me the story of her husband holding the quilt while she was getting it through the machine, trying to guide it through the machine. So it is quite a wonder, and I'm excited to get it hung up on the walls and very, very proud of the work that they did and very grateful to them as well.
That's truly amazing, really. Very well done. How many panels are on that? I got 272, but when I did the quick.
We had it calculated at one point.
Yeah. It's a bunch.
It has been laid out in different classrooms many different times, ironing and putting together, and each class, the kindergarten did like a tie-dye. I'm trying to remember, first grade, I did the felt. They did the felt applique. Third grade had, I have to look at names here. Did they? Oh, the third grade did self-portraits. They made a stamp with string and glue and then used it to stamp onto their muslin. And then we have weavings by fourth grade and fifth grade.
Batik resist.
A batik resist. Okay. I don't even know what that is.
Second grade did the embroidery.
Oh, second grade did the embroidery. So there you go. You've got every class with each one of the kiddos' names on there as well. And then the staff, if you notice, they're the ones that probably aren't as nice as the others because we're just not as creative anymore, I guess. I don't know. We went in there and we're like, oh my gosh, how do you do this? She had, Mrs. Snetchler had shapes for us in different colors of paint to make our own quilt block. And that was probably took me forever. I mean, I sat and tried to think forever on what's going to look good. You wanted it just right. That's right. So.
Okay. And then Dr. Littrell, if you want to get on one end, then I'll have Mr. Updike get on this end here. No, with her. Oh,
I think the school was built for this quilt because once we get it up there, we have like 2 inches on each side and about 6 on the top and 4 on the bottom.
Wow. That's cool.
Perfect. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Very good, thank you.
Now he's gonna label your hands.
What an amazing. So last forever. And rolling this thing right there.
Cool.
Okay.
Over here and roll it on the floor. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. It's,
Not awkwardly rolling.
so how many students had their hands in on this?
Every one of our students last year.
Everyone?
Every single student has a square on there.
And it's something they'll have pride in.
Yeah.
the Rest of their life, and they can always go back and say, that was my. Yeah.
And we do have the year on it, over in the corner.
Yeah.
So.
Amazing, this is so cool, this is really amazing. What a great idea, and not just have the idea, but go through with it, because that's, it's gotta be thousands of hours of work. Yes.
They put in a lot of time. A lot of time.
Got the core value award, right?
I do.
Core value award they did for getting the world-class staff. Appreciate the work and the
Yeah.
effort. That's definitely your vision.
Very good, thank you. Giving that whole school something to be proud of, that's amazing. Very good, congratulations. Where do you live on?
I'm on 231st.
Oh, okay. Who was that? I came on 272, but
Probably right.
I may have skipped 1 or 2. Just did the mathematicals on it.
Don't do math in public.
Huh?
Not supposed to do math in public.
Thank you very much. What an amazing project, and something that'll be memorialized in that school for forever. A great project. What else, Dr.?
Then we have our monthly highlight video that gives a little glimpse into what's been going well recently or throughout the school year at Spring Hill Middle School.
In the air, and we're working on field trip organization. Kids are getting excited to go to their different places. We have 8th grade going to Worlds of Fun, 7th grade is going to KC Zip, and 6th grade is going to Main Event.
And we've been doing the peach jar. That's been exciting to kind of get that going so that everyone knows what's going on all at the same time in the same place. So everybody's attitudes are good. It's just an exciting time. What's not good at Spring Hill Middle right now?
Yeah, right now in 8th grade history, we're diving into the Civil War, which is a very important topic. We just learned about Abraham Lincoln and his rise to fame. So we're also have our first track meet this week. So over 100 kids doing track this year at our school, and we're excited to go to our first meet in Paola and just kind of hopefully dominate all aspects of track and field.
What's going well is we just started gardening club about a month ago. We started some hydroponics projects. We're trying to grow potatoes and watermelon and some things in class that have been going well as we just finished up our unit on sensory receptors where kids tasted and smelled multiple different items, and some they enjoyed, some they didn't.
Our students have been designing and then building a disc golf course on our property. We are getting close to wrapping that project up. We are going to have a grand opening event on May the 13th to kind of celebrate the completion of the disc golf course. But yeah, that's kind of our highlight of the year.
Something that's going well is my kids are super engaged and we're getting ready for state assessment. So we're having a lot of fun doing escape rooms, review, all kinds of things. So yeah.
What's going well at Spring Hill? We have a lot of things going well. We are getting remodeled. So just everything you come in, first thing you see is new floors, go into classrooms, kids are excited. A lot of great things.
Anything else?
That's the good news, recognitions and announcements.
Very good. Thank you. A lot going on there at Spring Hill Middle School. Big track season starting up. 100 students in track is pretty amazing. Well done. Moving on to action items, which is the recommendations for modifying the collaborative late start Wednesdays part of professional learning communities. Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, this is the fourth school year that USD230 has been engaged in the professional learning community model, having both a late start and an early release on the same day on designated Wednesdays, which are known as Collaboration Wednesdays. They are very, very beneficial for our staff to help hone in on what particular student or group of students may need to master, the key competencies that have been outlined. As you know, we've been researching this year, talking to staff, surveying parents, seeing what's working well with it, what might need to be tweaked. And the last 2 or 3 meetings, Dr. Robinson and Dr. Smith have presented a recommendation to, for next year, make a tweak, which would be putting all of the grade levels K through 12 on the same late start schedule on Wednesday mornings. And they are here again to, just kind of summarize that. Then if you have questions, but our goal is that hopefully we can get a decision from the board on this so that we can move forward with getting the communication plan out and continuing to put into place the format that's going to be involved with those, in terms of with the arrivals in the mornings of students and our staff. So Dr. Robinson, Dr. Smith.
Well, we don't have any new information for you tonight. The presentation that's on there is the same one from the last meeting, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I would like to kind of hear the logic and reasoning one more time about why we're wanting to get them on the same rather than different.
Do you want to speak to the alignment piece or you want me to?
Sure, yeah. From a curricular standpoint, having the elementary schedule and the secondary schedule in alignment gives us the opportunity to offer vertical collaboration. So we're able to get multiple grade levels aligned with their curricula. So a team of K, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, they can look at a particular curriculum like an ELA content area and make sure that that curriculum is cohesive across the entire K-12 program. And our teachers in the survey did say that one thing that they would really like to have are more vertical collaboration opportunities during PLC.
The other group that I would add to when you think of your counselors, your nurses, some of those groups that overlap into both secondary and elementary, right now, a lot of them are alternating whether they're meeting in the morning or afternoon, but somebody is getting pulled out of their building while students are in the building. So it also would allow for some of that work to be done during that morning time without pulling them away from students.
Well, I just want to say thank you for holding this out. I think that was, I'd heard from a few parents, and so everything I'd heard was positive. They were just excited to have it all kind of the same, not half and half. And I don't think I've heard anything. I think the early morning, it seems to be what most parents were hoping for that have reached out to me. I do have one question about the white care, is that still being offered? I know we talked about it and then I apologize, I wasn't here last time, but it is being offered.
So I've met with the YMCA leadership a week and a half or two ago, just talking about how things were going in Spring Hill in general. Their feedback they're getting from parents is actually really positive, which is good. I think there's some confusion at times as to what PLC programming looks like. And I think that's the piece. Once the board approves the structure, they're willing to assist us. I think we would want to really look at what our expectations are for that time. And I had a good conversation with their leaders as to what they may be able to offer, but they would be able to support us if we choose to go that direction again.
Gotcha. And then will any of this change if we move towards a tiered bus? Will we have to reevaluate this as well?
So I guess it depends on what your start and end times are. It may actually make it in some ways easier to do some of it. We'll problem solve through that. If the board chooses to go to that more quickly, then
So
we can sit down and look at what it looks like. I still think you'd want, with what we're looking at with the morning, I still think it would work better within the tiered busing structure than the way we are split. I think that would cause more trouble for our transportation people.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? I think having the consistency is one of the biggest hurdles for families, parents, and I think that helps students to have that consistency and eliminates some of the confusion and provides clarity. So.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the modifying collaborative late start Wednesdays as part of professional learning communities.
I second the motion.
It's moved and seconded to adopt the recommendation for modifying the collaborative late start Wednesdays, part of professional learning communities. Any final questions or comments? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
approved. Oh, Mr. Updike, sorry.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, moving on to discussion items. Our first discussion item is request for the debate team students to attend 2 separate out-of-state competitions. Dr. Luttrell?
Yes, our debate team sponsor is here this evening. I know that one of the first board meetings that I came to last year after y'all were gracious enough to extend my employment contract, I came and Mr. Kunkel was here at that time he was requesting to go to DC, I believe it was, with some students. So
that's correct.
He's back this year, continue to do great work, and he wants to provide some insight as to what's coming up and just kind of seek approval.
Well, thank you, Dr. Luttrell. Thank you for the board for listening to our proposals here. I'm going to put what we have up here on the screen just so you can follow along. You guys were gracious enough to allow us to go to DC last year. And we have an opportunity to take some students this year to Louisville and to Phoenix, Arizona with some possible national tournaments. One of these, the first one that you see there, the one that's in Louisville, is actually the same tournament that you allowed us to go to last year. The NCFL Grand National Tournament, that's over Memorial Day weekend. And then in June, there's another opportunity that we have to go to Phoenix for the NSDA National Tournament. I'll talk briefly about what those acronyms stand for here in a second. I will just kind of toot our horn just a little bit, so to speak. Just some information about our program. Our numbers are up from last year. They continue to grow as a program. Last year we had, I think, 17 or 18 students as part of our forensics program. This year we're up to 23. We have more kids who are qualified for state. We so far have 8 different entries heading to the state tournament, which is the first weekend in May in Valley Center, and possibly some more qualifying this weekend, hopefully. And we're turning into one of the larger programs in the region, I think. I was talking with a colleague, I won't say what district, but it was a 6A school they're pretty well known for their debate and forensics program. And he was saying that they only have 10 or 11 kids as part of their program. And we have more than double that. So I think the kids have a lot of excitement. They have a lot of passion for this, and they want to see this program grow and they want to see it be successful. So a lot of these opportunities that they have to go to these tournaments are because of the work and the dedication that they have toward this program. So the first one, I didn't change the location on there. Whoops. But the first one is the NCFL Grand National Tournament. NCFL stands for National Catholic Forensics League. It's a little misleading because it's not a religious exclusive organization. There are schools from across the country that are part of this league, where our district includes some of the Shawnee Mission schools, Piper, some of the Olathe schools, Lansing, pretty much draw a circle from Lansing to Lawrence down to Emporia, and kind of any school in that area has the opportunity to go. This one is May 26th through 28th in Louisville, Kentucky this year. Not quite as far as Washington, D.C. And then the other one is NSDA National Tournament. NSDA stands for National Speech and Debate Association. This would be the most prestigious of all the tournaments. The NSDA has been around. They'll actually celebrate their 100th anniversary next year. And anytime somebody talks about going to nationals, this is usually what people default to is NSDA. This one is June 11th through 17th in Phoenix, Arizona. Be a little toasty there, but that's all right. And so our district with NSDA is what's considered 3 trails, which is kind of a hodgepodge of the KC Metro with some of the Olathe and Blue Valley schools, St. Thomas Aquinas, Lewisburg, St. James, some of those areas. And so how students qualify is they have to participate in what's considered a national qualifier tournament. Speech and debate is unique in that you can go to state and not go to nationals, or vice versa. You could qualify for a national tournament and not qualify for state. It's kind of unique in that way. Generally with the NCFL tournament, it's the top 6 in an event. The NSDA tournament, it varies based on the number of entries. So generally the minimum they take is 2, but if you have 30 entries in an event, they can take 3, and it kind of goes up exponentially from there. But students can only qualify in one event. They could compete in 2 or 3 events at a qualifying tournament, but they can only go to the national tournament for one event. So it leaves some possibilities for others. So let's say the top 6 in the NCFL tournament qualify, but then somebody wants to go in another event, then it defaults down to the next person on the list. So just because you don't immediately qualify doesn't mean that you don't get your shot. So right now we have, for the NCFL tournament in Louisville over Memorial Day weekend, we have Audio Garcia. He's a junior. And I actually just got an email today. He went last year in congressional debate, and he has qualified in extemporaneous speaking, but I got an email today that somebody in that congressional debate division had to drop. So his preference is congressional. So he's actually going to be very excited tomorrow when I tell him that he's going for congressional. So that is for the Louisville tournament. And then NSDA, we have Audio is currently a first alternate for congressional debate, and we may have some additional people who could qualify this weekend and next. We have one team, for example, this weekend who's qualifying. They feel like they have a really good shot, and kind of rooting for them. One of those 2 is a freshman, which would be really exciting to go as a freshman. I would be going to supervise with both of these. Should you approve us traveling, I would be going as the lead sponsor, and our assistant, Mrs. Joanne Keckley, may also go as an additional sponsor if necessary as well. So just what we're asking here, and just to give you an idea of what dates we're looking at here, we're asking just permission to go to these events. NCFL, we would plan to leave on Friday, the 26th, and return on Monday, the 29th, using a district vehicle. It's only about a 7.5 hour drive, not too bad, doable in a day. NSDA probably leave on Sunday, June the 11th and return on Friday, the 17th. Just talking with some of the families, they'd kind of prefer to fly, but that would be something that would be their responsibility and would not be asking the district to cover flights. And the same would go for lodging as well. That would be something that would be on the responsibility of the individual student. That would not be something that we're asking the district for, kind of in line with what some of the other programs do with band. But we do have some fundraising opportunities as well that help to mitigate that cost. One of those is next month we'll be doing what's considered a showcase of events where our students will be performing the events that they've been practicing and competing with in forensics. Since it's not a spectator sport, unless you're judging it, you don't get to see the things that the kids work on. So we're planning on starting a showcase of events. So I believe that's Tuesday, May the 16th or 17th, whatever that Tuesday is, at 6:45 in the high school auditorium. So that's one of the things that we're doing. So we're just asking for permission to attend these two tournaments, these two out-of-state tournaments, and give these students the opportunity to compete on a national level and continue to showcase the wonderful things that we're doing here at the Spring Hill School District. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions? Comments?
No, not
Glad to see the program growing.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
it's great to see
I
it.
think, I don't know whether it's still a thing, but I'd always heard that, adults' number one fear is talking in front of people. And so programs like this are really important. So I'm usually very supportive of anything that gets people out of their little bubble and see the world. So
Yes, and even if you don't go into something like being a lawyer or something where you're speaking in front of an audience, it's still a good skill to have for job interviews or just dealing with people on a daily basis.
yeah, absolutely.
Where's this weekend's qualifier?
This weekend it is at Blue Valley High School. And then next weekend we have Blue Valley Southwest.
Good.
Very good. Any other comments or questions?
Sounds great.
Yeah. Good. Great to hear the program going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to Cisco networking licensing and support renewals.
Yes, our Director of Technology, Mr. Phil Elliott, will come and go over some of what this next agenda item involves. I think he'd be probably the first to tell you it's real exciting, but required.
It's great. As I mentioned in here, Cisco changes the way they do licensing every few years. And they've moved, like most software companies, to a subscription-based model instead of the permanent license model like they used to have. And so as our stuff ages out and they're up for replacement, we've got to switch to the new licensing model. And so, but in doing so, they have removed some of the support costs. So they're trying to keep it a little bit neutral. Obviously, they're making more money. That's their goal. But the SmartNet, if you recall in years past, I always brought the SmartNet to you. It's down to the $10,000 range instead of the $60,000 that it has been in years past. And so we're kind of swapping those expenses. This has a couple of new things that I want to point out. Most of the things are the same things that we paid with SmartNet for years, but the two new items that I want to talk about are the multi-factor authentication. We're using Cisco Duo as our multi-factor authentication. We will be bringing that to you all to get your Google accounts moved over to two-factor authentication in the next few meetings. So that's one thing that's new. And then the other one is the endpoint security. We've been on our Windows fleet, we've used Sophos for lots of years, and we're going to be moving over to the Cisco AMP product. And the reason that we want to make that transition is it connects into a lot of the other security systems that we have. And so when an end user device, when it detects some sort of malware or virus on that device, the firewall can actually actively provision that device and move it off into its own private space, its own sandbox is the term they use. And so, but again, it's comparable to the Sophos that we were using. This is just going to take advantage of some other integrations that we already have. So this is a 5-year agreement. And that does a couple of things for us. It gets us the greatest discount on the individual items. It locks in that price for 5 years, even if we add to it. So if we build another building and we need X number of more switches, or we need to put a redundant firewall in, all of those costs are locked in at that 5-year mark for 5 years. And so it keeps us from having any escalation over that period of time. We did something very similar last year with the telephone stuff. That's on an annual agreement. About this time of year last year, we converted it because that was the first piece they moved to the new licensing model. Now they're moving the switching and wireless over. So stand for any questions.
You know, I always got one.
I love it.
Is there any physical devices with this? It's all software. Right?
Well, the one physical device is that the management hardware, and it retails for about 120 to 125,000. That's coming free as part of this 5-year agreement. Okay. So, and it's basically taking logs from all the different systems and developing dashboards from it is what it's doing. Lots of CPU, lots of memory
to see what.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah. Got it. And it also does. It's also used as the interface to configure everything. So it's not only reporting, but it's also pushing out our configurations. So.
Okay.
But no, that's the only piece of hardware in this.
Okay.
The rest of it's just the permission to use the hardware.
Yes.
I like the multifactorial authentication. I like that that's a part of it.
Yeah, we actually have the staff. We have a handful of Rule 10 and a few of those other contracted employees that we're still getting picked up. But the rest of the staff is using it for Skyward Students, Skyward Finance, and all of their Google Access now. So
good. Good. Where is this funded from?
Anywhere Doug will let me.
I guess that question's to you, Doug. Huh? Okay.
And this is for, so this is that much every year? then?
Yeah, for 5 years, yes. The phone one, I believe, was 27,000, I think is what it is as an annual expense.
And that's for the whole district, not just.
Yes, correct, yes.
Any other comments? More questions? All right, thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
I think you're up on the next one, aren't you? I'm moving on to Library Media Center materials for Forest Spring Middle School.
You all have been through the drills several times in recent years. We are opening up another school, a middle school, Forest Spring Middle School in August. And of course, with that, in addition to the construction and all the furniture and furnishings, we also need to equip the library with materials. And so Dr. Smith and the principal designee for Forest Spring Middle School, who's also a quilt maker, Mrs. Sly, are both here to just walk you through again, just, the materials recommendation for Forest Spring Middle School. And again, we will vote on this at the next meeting. It was just across the necessary threshold.
Good evening. The recommendation to outfit the Forest Spring Middle School library is to work with Follett, who is our current vendor that we've worked with on past library installations. As part of our research for this project, we did contact a competitor, Permabound, to compare proposals side by side. Those two are leading vendors for library installations. Follett's proposal did come in just a little bit less than Permabound by about $2,000. And Follett's proposal also included about 1,300 more additional titles for the cost. So they were offering us more books for a little bit less. And you'll see in the proposal the scope of work that is included. So we are going to be able to have them help us do everything from the shelving to the organization, really start to finish. We'll be working with the same library consultant that helped us with the installation at Dayton Creek. And so, Mrs. Sly, if there's anything you'd like to add about that, I think that was a relatively smooth process. One reason too that we also would like to continue to work with Follett is that they are the vendor for our library software. So we use Destiny, their product, to manage all of our collections, be able to monitor our circulation and pull data about our library usage. So maintaining that relationship allows us to continue with the software that's currently in place in our other libraries. So the proposal you have before you is really for the scope of work that Follett would complete to provide this new library installation, what equipment, materials we would be getting with that scope. And like I said, they did outprice and give us more titles than their leading competitor, Permabound. Are there questions that Mrs. Sly or I can answer regarding that scope of library work?
Yeah, I was curious, are we the ones choosing the books we get, or are they just sending us a bunch?
We asked Follett to send us kind of an initial starter pack, if you will, for a middle school library. But our librarians, including Lindsay Cox, who has recently been named the librarian at Forest Spring Middle School, have already begun reviewing that list. So we are able to remove and replace titles as we feel like it would be appropriate for our collection.
Thank you.
It's not a committee of people reviewing those books, just one person?
It's all three of our middle school librarians.
How many books does it take to outfit the library?
We'll
Just a
start,
guess.
yeah, we'll start the collection with close to 7,000, but we will want to continue to grow that over time. And I'll let Mrs. Sly speak to that as she has recently overseen the collection at Dayton Creek.
Yeah, I know every year when you start a library up, you think, my gosh, that's a lot of books. But throughout the last 2 years, our librarian at Dayton Creek has continued to come and say, hey, we need more of this and we need more of these titles. And so even though it sounds like a lot of books and there's, not that many children, obviously, in the schools, but they are the titles in series and such that aren't there that the kids are asking for. So even though that it sounds like a lot, it still is something that is needed continually every year to add to the collection.
That doesn't sound like a lot to me.
Well, and the titles will include things that are, of course, of student interest so that they can check those books out for reading for pleasure. But the librarians also try to stock the library with research materials and reading material that will support the instruction in the classes as well. So it's a nice combination of things that student can check out for themselves to pursue an individual reading interest, but also have something for reference material for class as well.
I'm glad you have multiple people going over that, because you get little research on a company. They're that huge. They probably supply all the books to most every school in the country. So you could actually have the same books in every single library, and you'd lose a lot of diversity there to me. I'm glad you're going through them on your own.
Yeah, they are not here tonight, but I would give a huge thank you to Amy Berman and Rebecca Cheek and our newest librarian, Lindsay Cox, for their time and attention to reviewing proposals, book lists, and determining if the scope of work was appropriate and would meet our needs. Their input and feedback on the process was incredibly helpful.
Good.
Any questions, comments, thoughts? Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to an update on staff recruiting, Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, again, opening up Forest Spring Middle School in August, which is always a large task, especially with staffing. And so thought we would have our Director of Personnel and HR, Ms. Hackney, come this evening and talk about that process, coupled with also just how our recruiting for all other positions, full-time positions, is proceeding heading into the next school year here in early spring, and then we will come back in June, probably the first or the second meeting in June, and at that time, Ms. Hackney will update us on just after all the dust has settled in terms of, how many positions total did we have that we were looking that we had to fill for next year, and then if we can get the data, how that kind of compares, to prior years, as well as, with maybe similar districts within the region in terms of percentages, but that we're still kind of in the middle and really won't have that available in June. But right now, she's going to give us an update on her ongoing efforts to make sure that we have necessary qualified individuals for our positions throughout USD 230. Ms. Hackney, thank you.
Good evening.
Coming.
Thank you for letting me come before you today. This is very much the exciting part of my job is the recruitment efforts. And tonight I want to hit 4 objectives. I want to provide a brief overview of our recruitment process, and it's not a me thing. It is definitely a teamwork endeavor. I want to share about the power of teamwork in our recruitment efforts, an overview of the staffing process for Forest Spring Middle School, and update on the recruitment efforts in other buildings and departments. As we were talking about the library opening up Forest Spring and the purchasing for the library, I started making tick marks on my paper of how many schools I've had the opportunity to help open up, 1 being a principal and 4 in this role. So I've had lots of practice with recruiting and had lots of opportunities to do that. It was pretty astounding. Some of us have been through all 5 of them. So it was kind of fun to look back on just in a relatively short amount of time, how much growth we've had. Really, the efforts of recruitment, I really love this quote that no one can whistle a symphony. It takes a whole orchestra to play it. And want to talk a little bit about kind of that effort and that teamwork that goes into that, into our recruitment efforts. We, as each building hosts many practicum students, many student teachers, and that's kind of one of our first lines of getting people attracted to our district. If they're coming to us from a college, a student teaching, they get a really nice taste in their mouth about our district and are eager to join us here. Word of mouth from our community, our employees and others. We hear a lot of teachers that are looking to come here or classified staff members that my neighbor told me what a great district this is, or somebody that works in the district. So that word of mouth is incredibly important. The teamwork goes into departments within our district, have a really great collaboration with the communication engagement department. Christopher and his team, they do a great job of marketing our HR department, branding the district, and really making us look good. On the screen, you can see the Stick with Spring Hill episodes that you can check out, and that really highlights what it's like to work in the district and some of the materials that you might see at our recruitment fairs. In front of you, you have a bag of some of the advertising specialty items that we pass out during our recruitment fairs, along with the information that candidates in our colleges and universities receive from us about our district. And that in large part comes from our collaboration with the communication and engagement department. We have a wonderful, wonderful collaboration with the teaching and learning department. So we attract the teachers to our district, but it's the teaching and learning department with their new team member academy, the work that they do with us on our orientations, and really we get them to the district and making that experience of onboarding a good one. So appreciate the collaboration with our teaching and learning department. Then our special education department doing screening interviews. The administrators, our principals, our assistant principals, our directors, hitting the recruitment trail with me and helping to do recruitment fairs. Our directors at the Chamber of Commerce job fair that'll be coming up, sitting there and helping to recruit some of our classified staff members. Joanne Whitman, her teacher pathway at the high school, really getting students interested in becoming teachers, and that does benefit us down the road. Our principals spending hours and hours with their teams in the buildings interviewing teachers. I've got a couple quick little stories. I was in a harvest crew at one of our local wineries, clipping grapes. I hear somebody on the other side I can't see talking about, I think I want to sub somewhere. I open the grapes, I look through. Hey, I'm the HR director with the Spring Hill School District. And we actually got that individual on as a sub in our district. And then cycle class, a gal walked by, was talking about, was a retired teacher. She's a very regular sub now with our district, and it all happened in cycle class on a Saturday morning. So you never know where recruiting will take place. This slide shows Mark Williams, who does a great job recruiting at some of our colleges with us, but shows the different colleges that we recruit. Some of them are through virtual means. There's a group of colleges, Bethany, Bethel, Kansas Wesleyan, and McPherson, Sterling, and Tabor. We virtually recruit with them, so I don't go to all of those places, but we recruit several places, and the stars indicate sites that we host student teachers for those universities or colleges and practicum students. So we've got a really nice partnership with many colleges and universities throughout the state and outside the state. So really one of the ones I'm most proud of, not because I did get my master's there, but KU had partnerships with Olathe, a few other much larger districts, and that was a goal early on, is to form that relationship with KU so they would begin to send student teachers our way. And each semester we get KU student teachers. So those partnerships are really important. We serve on the MNU advisory board. So all those places that we can help give to the colleges, they in turn help give to us by sending students. Some more nice pictures of some of our staff members out on the recruitment trail with me. You'll never find me in a picture because I do avoid pictures, but I am at all these places too. I don't just send them out on the road. I'm out on the road with them. I think the secret sauce to what makes our district different than most other districts really is that personal touch. We provide personal tours. We might meet a candidate at a university, really like that candidate, and offer a personal tour of the district, get them into buildings to meet principals. We've had jobs that have been offered and the candidate, I really want to spend some time in the building to see the culture. Get them in the building so they can make their decision. Answering calls and questions throughout the evening and weekends. If I can answer a question on a Saturday night, and that means I can get a job accepted, I'm willing to do that. And I know our principals and directors do the same thing. I think our interview protocols are very professional. They're pleasant. Even those most of the time that aren't offered the job leave with a good taste in their mouth from that experience. We do a great job, I think, in following up with candidates, whether or not they've got the position, we follow up. And I think that personal touch that we offer our students, our employees, our parents, I think that does carry over into people wanting to join us. And then that support, going back to our teaching and learning department, all of the support with mentors and resource colleagues that we do offer to our staff. And then switching gears to the Forest Spring staffing timeline. This was on a board agenda a few months ago, but kind of reviewing what that timeline looks like at your leisure. If you want to take a closer look, that is hyperlinked on the word staffing timeline. But we are motoring through the staffing timeline, keeping on schedule quite well. I did want to draw your attention to the middle school certified placement survey that was conducted earlier this semester. In that survey, we ask our certified staff a first and second choice on location, a subject preferred. We ask about endorsements, activities, athletics, leadership that they would be interested in being involved in, and then gave them an opportunity to provide any additional information that they might need to. 100% of our middle school certified staff got either the preferred subject area or the preferred location first choice. So I think most people were happy about their placement, and the majority got both. So tried really hard to accommodate the choice factor for our certified staff. As we continue to go through this presentation, I'm spending a lot of time on our certified staff, and that's on purpose. I will in June visit about our classified staff, but right now it really is a high pressure time to get the best teaching talent out there. So thus the reason why I'm focusing on that tonight. These are the positions that we have yet to fill. I have on Dayton Creek, the kindergarten job was offered. It was accepted today. I ring a bell when we get a job accepted. So this time of the year, I'm ringing it loud. But you can see the positions we have yet to fill. We have this state of education, quite honestly. You know, we would at one point get 300 applications for elementary. We don't get that many applications. And then some of these harder to fill positions, it's a challenge. So we're doing everything we can to fill those positions and working hard. Just last week, and you noticed probably on your personnel report, industrial technology teacher. That is hard, but Mark Williams did his magic and got an industrial technology teacher. So that was quite good. And then we have that wild card that we really don't know about would be kindergarten. We had kindergarten roundup, and our elementary principals did a fantastic job with roundup. I've heard some great stories about roundup. 296 incoming kindergartners that we know of right now. That is expected will probably pop up a little bit compared to 280 in the 22-23 school year and 239 in the 21-22. So that's that unknown of how many little people that will be joining us this year. New positions, we had 18 licensed positions with the opening of Forest Spring Middle School. Our middle school principals, teaching and learning, some other departments sat around a table kind of planning out what we needed, really got it as slim as we possibly could. So 18 licensed positions with the opening of the building. And then we have 5 additional licensed positions due to growth, and you can see those positions there. One was approved in 21-22. 2 of those were 21 and 22 that one we filled, and we're working on filling the other one. Anticipated vocal music. We have 1 vocal music teacher at the middle school level. It's kind of tight she's growing the program, which is great news. So we're figuring out if we're going to be hiring another middle school vocal music teacher, and then still working with our funding to see if we'll be adding a middle school math interventionist at Spring Hill Middle and a reading interventionist at, I think, a split between Forest Spring and Woodland Spring. Couple fun facts. We were able to hire 4 Spring Hill High School graduates in positions with the district teaching positions. They ended up being hard to fill positions. We've got Brogan Rourke, world language, Brock LaPlante, physical science, Maddie Belcher, biology and health, and then Sydney Goldman taking over Brad Rinking's position with art. So it's kind of fun to see some of these students that I had when I was a principal when they were little people that have come back, and thank goodness they chose some of these difficult to fill positions. Additionally, this time we have 46 positions that we have filled or need to fill of certified licensed positions. Last year we had 75, and the year before that was 67. So unfortunately, I anticipate the number to go up a little bit from 46, just with perhaps a few more resignations. Love on your teachers, please, so we can keep as many as we can. But it's looking promising that we're not at the 75 licensed positions that we're filling like we did last year. And then finally, and I'll open up for questions here in a second, I will be back in June to talk about certified retention rates, attrition rates, I will be doing a stay interview for those that are choosing to stay with us, what makes them stay, what would cause them to leave, so we can kind of get ahead of the game on that. The Kansas Teacher Retention Initiative findings, review that information. We've got that for the state of Kansas and for Spring Hill, some classified staffing updates and supplemental updates. So I stand for questions.
It's a lot.
It is.
A lot going on, but I mean, having 46 positions to fill this year is quite a few ahead of where we were last year, right?
Yeah. And we're 1 month away from the deadline and the negotiated agreement where we start. There's a liquid damage for leaving. So we've got some time, but I'm just hopefully I love our staff and I just want to keep them and keep the great momentum that we're doing. But I'll be able to report in June, like some reasons why people leave if they're going outside of education and whatnot. But I've got that data from, a few years back as well.
I'll be curious to see the retention rates and attrition, things like that.
Yeah. There's and Mr. Kunkel being up here, that was really fun, hearing the growth of his program and thinking about that call that I made, offering him the job and how excited Mark Williams was when he recommended him. So it's fun to see, people flourishing in the district. It's good for our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. You're very humble, but I
Yeah.
know you're a big part of the secret sauce. So thanks for all you do.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And I leaned over and told Director Hoffman it's even more impressive when she said that we had 46 openings that we filled this year, including 18 or 19 that were at Forest Spring Middle. Last year, coming in this year, we had 75, 76, and we did not have a new building open this year. So if you take that really down, you take out the new building where that was necessary, drops it down to about 28 versus 70. So I mean, again, terrific job by a lot of different individuals.
Thank you. Moving on to consideration of change to the 23-24 district calendar, Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, and I'll try to not muddy the waters too much, but when we approved the 24-25 calendar, the one option that garnered a lot of support from parents as well as teachers was to try and have non-attendance days for students the week of Thanksgiving. Now, there were some other things in there that we were, there was also some mention from staff at the time that we should probably try to have a professional learning day sometime around that April Good Friday, after the Monday after Good Friday, if we could do that, because it was just quite a long haul from the time everyone came back from spring break to the end of the school year. So that calendar was approved last month. And then, of course, which I kind of had anticipated, word kind of filtered out that the Thanksgiving week would be non-attendance days. Well, with the 23-24 calendar already approved last year, so people kind of just made some real small inquiries as to, is there any way that we could get the Thanksgiving count, the 23-24 calendar to somewhat maybe align with 24-25? And I said, yeah, but it takes board approval. We got to make sure that, there is definite interest. And so we were able to put together first, what that calendar might look like to make it align with the 24-25 version. And when we did the 24-25, we also looked at making sure that we only wanted to lose overall one student contact day. Even though students would not be here Monday and Tuesday, we wanted to make up one of those 2 days, which we were able to put in the calendar by beginning the school year instead of on a Wednesday, making it on a Tuesday in August. And so we were able to make that happen. And so we were able to get in that professional learning day. But then as we came to the 23-24 calendar and looked at that, we were able to put a draft together that does put the Thanksgiving 2 attendance days be non-attendance days for students at Thanksgiving. We did start from move the start date to a Tuesday on that version. And then it does have the I believe the 23-24 version, like I said, had let me pull it. I don't want to misquote here. Yeah, and the 23-24 calendar does not incorporate the one that had been approved, the one that's in effect currently, 2024 does not have any type of non-attendance day in and around that Good Friday or Monday after. However, with the 24-25 version, I believe, no, I'm getting confused, but the Thanksgiving after 2024 does not have the Good Friday or the Monday after option available to it.
So just what are the specific changes to the 23-24 calendar that are being discussed?
Would be the Thanksgiving, that their students would be in attendance on the Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving is the big change. And another big change on that would be instead of having 4 current work days prior to the start of the school year for staff or teachers, it is reduced to 3 days.
And we start a day earlier. That's
Yes,
what, does
starts
that
a
goes
day
from
earlier.
4 to 3 days
Yes.
of teacher prep time and by doing that, it accommodates that Monday and Tuesday off in 23-24.
For students, yes.
Two changes. Students would not attend Monday, Tuesday, the week of Thanksgiving. And in order to accommodate that, the second change is to start a day earlier, which impacts teacher prep time.
Correct. And so because of that factor with the teachers being the ones directly impacted by starting a day early, it was felt that we needed to gauge staff, see how did they feel to make sure losing that, even though they might be excited about not having an attendance day on Monday and Tuesday Thanksgiving, how did they feel at making sure they were noticed about that day in August, having one less day? And so we did a brief survey to staff last week, and it just closed at noon today. And we did include those results. They weren't uploaded till this afternoon, but the results of that survey, we had about 240 something responses to that survey from staff, and it was 86% staff said that they would like and welcome that alignment with the 24-25 calendar. Now, I do want to say that again, tonight, all I'm asking is, to give discussion, maybe direct me on whether it's something you're interested in or not. And we would come back again at the April meeting and try to, seek your approval at that time. But we have to make a decision soon because we can't get into June or July because of that impact with going from 4 to 3, that impacts how we plan our school year start in the fall. And if that's not going to occur, if there's going to be a change, we need to make that soon. With that, now I will muddy the waters even a little bit further. If you were interested, the lady that came and spoke earlier tonight about the Good Friday around that holiday, either that Friday or that Monday, as you notice in the preferred version here for 23-24, that currently is not a date for any students to be off, and it's not a professional learning day. But in looking at the calendar, there are some options that, again, if we go back to our staff and we go back to our leadership teams that we could look at and possibly make some adjustments to some other of our breaks that are already built in and allow to possibly put a non-attendance day so in there for that. The reason it's in for 24 and 25 and not 23, 24 is the way the calendar falls this for 23, 24. You've got the way New Year's falls and the way that normally when teachers would come back, it's really still kind of early. So there's two professional learning days built in early January, the 2nd and the 3rd. And then students come back on the 4th. Otherwise, we'd have them come back on the 3rd if we wanted to have that there on that Good Friday, which really is not bad. But then the calendar kicks back for 24, 25, and you're able to get it in. It's just that once every 5 or 6 years where you run into that dilemma. But as I said, there are some other options that are not listed, that if your board is also interested in putting some type of a non-attendance day in and around that holiday in April for next year, there are some other options that could be discussed within the current existing breaks that could possibly make that happen if there's interest.
The option that you have on the agenda does have April 19th, 2024 as a non-attendance day. Does that work?
April 9th. What's April 19th?
I believe it's Good Friday in 2024.
I think March 29th is what I've come up
Okay,
with.
thank you. Thank you. I was like, wait a minute.
There are two options attached to board docs.
Thank you.
One of them is just taking the approved 24-25 calendar and transposing those dates to 23-24. On that, the PD day in April does not align with Easter weekend because Easter is in March in 23-24. The second option is the one that says Thanksgiving option, and it doesn't change anything in second semester. It only makes that adjustment to Thanksgiving week and to the start of school.
Christopher, what is the one that says 2023, 2024 calendar option? Is that the one that you were saying takes 2024, 25 and kind of overlaps it? Okay. Thank you. That makes more sense.
Which is the one that says option 24, 25 on the top, but the calendar says 23, 24.
That's the one that takes 24, 25 and transposes it to 23, 24.
With the same breaks and the same.
Yes, it's the 23, 24 calendar option that copies the 24, 25 calendar, which is why it's named that way.
So which one of these options works with days in school and meeting all our requirements?
Both of them do.
They do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And for a little more clarity, the survey that was sent to staff, and so the results, the report that you'll see there is in response to the Thanksgiving option calendar that is only looking at making changes to first semester. So you'll see in the open comments, several of the teachers said, well, I would love to still have that PD day in April, because in the option that was presented to them, that wasn't there.
So again, since there is we're not asking for any decision tonight. I just need what we would like to have from the board is, do you want to stick with the current 23, 24 calendar that is already in place, already approved? Or would you like for us to bring you next meeting the version that meets alignment with the 24, 25, and perhaps even bring something that has aligns, with the request?
I'd be interested in looking at that.
Yeah, I would be too, especially with this. I mean, the Thanksgiving thing, 84% is a pretty big percentage of staff people that were interested in it. I mean, I think you guys honestly put that out not knowing what they were going to say. So But yeah, if there's a way you could incorporate that. Good Friday, I do think that there's, seems like there's people that maybe want to travel that weekend. It makes it maybe a little easier, but I don't know.
Yeah, if we're gonna bring it back, let's see if we can fit that PD day in March.
Okay. I can do that. Christopher can do that. No.
So something I want all of us to keep in mind. So March will be, the students will have 1 week in March where they're in school for the entire week, because there's spring break. And then the next week they're out a couple days for the remainder of spring break. And then the next week they would be out Friday for Good Friday. So there's no full weeks coming off of February, which is full of holidays. So I just want us to keep in mind when, as we approach this, if our goal is to give our teachers and students a break between spring break and the end of the year, I'm not sure Good Friday is always the right solution to that. So just something to think about before next time.
Yeah, agreed. I think we definitely need to think about that. Any other comments, insight, feedback on the changes to the 23-24 district calendar? All right, moving on to the superintendent evaluation form for the future. Feedback do you have? Comments? Dr. Luttrell?
Yes, there's been continued work on the various portions of the superintendent evaluation that is hoped to have in place by July 1 for the purpose of evaluating my performance. And we've been kind of identified the model, and then each month or every few meetings, Mrs. Kramer has been putting forth, different segments of it just to see is there tweaks you want to make on that particular section. And I think tonight, Candace, if you have anything, what particularly you'd like to have them give some input on?
I'm sorry, I was trying to find the form. I thought we were going to work on the first few pages first.
Yeah.
Pages, step 2. With comments for that before we started working on the rubric.
That'd be good.
Nels, isn't that what we discussed?
I believe so.
So,
We kind of need to get the process down.
yeah, because when I talked to Rachel, I said, make a copy of those first pages, which we did. And then I looked at board docs and it said we were looking at page 9, which is the rubric. So I got confused. Where do you want to start?
I think we have to establish the process first, the steps 1 through 5 right now. I think that's the key piece. Has anyone had a chance to look through this and redline markup?
I didn't redline markup or anything, but I do think this is probably pertinent opinion. I went to a session at the National School Board meeting. Dr. Luttrell was in there and Nicole was in there about the superintendent evaluation. But one of the things in this process that this school district did was they did 3 formative evaluations. They were set up by trimesters. So every trimester, and they had, it was not a executive session. It wasn't an open meeting. They just had 2 board members, and then the board president could be there if they wanted to be there. So each trimester, they had 2 different board members. So they got personal time working with the superintendent, and then the board president could come and go. And then the final evaluation was done at the end. And they also did a lot of it through Google Docs. So they had, the evaluation that was tied to the strategic plan and allowed people, all board members to go in and make comments. And then the superintendent also did the 360 on his end. So he was responsible. Or am I remembering this the way you remembered it, Dr. Luttrell?
You summarized it pretty well.
So the superintendent did the 360 part with his self-evaluation, staff evaluation, which I think Dr. Luttrell has talked about doing anyway. And then you know, looking at his job description, how that aligns. And then the board did those formative evaluations and then the summation one at the end. So, no.
And it sounds like a good process. It basically engages the entire board throughout the year. Gives an opportunity to have kind of individual conversations with the superintendent about evaluation. It's did they set goals as a board for the superintendent, or did they use this at the beginning of the year, or was it? Do you remember if it?
I haven't dug into it that much.
Okay. Did they send? Can we?
Yes, yes, we can request their
So
tool.
can
which
you-
they created? And the thing that I really like, I have the lady's email address. Rochester.
Illinois.
3A, was it Illinois? Was it Rochester, Illinois? Anyway, I have her email address so I can send it to you. But the board president was actually a PhD in educational leadership and she taught at a university. So she knew what she was doing when she set up this evaluation. So I thought it was really good.
And this is the one that's geared on the trimester?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Assume it would be a full board when you're doing goal setting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would think
yes,
it would be a
yes.
full board. Okay, can you send that to?
Yep.
Candy, and then Candy, when you get this information back, could you send it out to the board?
Yes, we'll get it in a format we can look at, but meanwhile, if everybody will look at this step 1, step 2. Because there's things in there that I didn't understand when I was typing it, because it says, moreover, these goals must be SMART, S period, M period, A period, R period, D. I don't know what those are.
Yeah, that's
It says right in the same sentence.
specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But I think we would really need some kind of a timeline to a goal. You know, this should happen in February or March.
For the development evaluation tool or
The
for
goal,
the?
no, I'm saying as part of this process is that there probably needs to be some guideline on when they should.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Especially if we do multiple evaluations, we want to break the year up kind of an equal increments so that you could have, I mean, you could do 4.
Which is kind
3
of
or
different
3.
because really you'd think you'd set goals before the school year, but the evaluation's supposed to be in like January or February.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
So you could adjust your evaluation periods to align with the school
Is that
year.
a state law though, or?
It is, but the evaluation has to be done by statute by March something. First or second, something, it's in March, I think, but one of those evaluations could be considered an evaluation, your primary evaluation. So that the other 2 would support that. So. Okay. It's a timeline for evaluations. And I'll create a timeline for getting this done and completed, and we'll just put intermediate periods of review and comment, and we'll move through it. If we have comments, we'll resolve them. If we don't, we'll move forward. Okay. Very good. Good. Any other feedback or comments on superintendent evaluation? Okay, well, we'll move right along to possible items on the horizon that may soon be an agenda item. Dr. Luttrell?
Just as, again, some sampling of some topics that might find their way to an agenda in the next 2 or 3 meetings. See the list there. We have student handbooks, which is always a big one coming up before the end of the school year. So we can print those or have those ready to go in time for August and registration. We'll have our health professionals back for another presentation on a topic that's kind of been very much in the news that impacts, with fentanyl and some of our, again, continued, drug use, some things that we might be able to do as a district to help in the event that there's some type of hopefully not been an emergency situation. We will be having the monthly dates for your meeting dates and times for next school year, because that will kick in come July. Probably give those to you in May or early May, probably, if not even maybe the next meeting, maybe the next meeting coming up, so you can have some time to look at those. I'm probably going to give you one version that is strictly transposed from what we're doing currently and what the line dates would be for next year. I might also throw another draft in there just for you to consider that, might have a little bit different look in terms of maybe not every month having, we currently do have a couple months during the calendar where we only meet once. The other meetings are twice, at our schools, which I think are good. But we might have a little bit, different look, but you can have some opportunities to have make some choices if you would like. Also would like, maybe I've had some interest in maybe having some time or a discussion among the board in terms of what type of policy or communication plan would be in place and expectations if whenever, you as a Board of Education member, would like to visit, some of our individual schools to make sure that you know what's going on, what's happening. I looked in our policy book. We really don't have any specific policy on that. Some districts do, some districts do not. But I thought that would be a good discussion we might want to have so everyone can kind of give their thoughts of what they think might be the best method for that, because there are a lot of different ways that could be looked at through different lenses. We also will have a presentation coming up soon on the new Kansas graduation requirements, along with how that kind of parlays into how that would look in terms of as we possibly transition into weighted grades at the secondary level, particularly the high school, kind of then move into a Laude recognition program. All those kind of work hand in hand, and we will be bringing that information to you to give you a broader, look at that. And then our elementary schools are very heavily involved in the Leader in Me, which again is big, also a part of our strategic plan. Give you a presentation on just, what that entails and what work they're continuing to do, with that particular program that is pretty much in place at most all of our elementary schools. And it's creates habits to be successful in life. And then, of course, we also, again, with our strategic plan, because of the Listen and Learn tool, because of my first year, we are keeping the content pretty much in place, but we are restructuring some of the content in terms of how it looks to where it fits, to where people maybe may have a better idea as to, oh, this is the part for technology, this is the part for academic, this is where operations, fits in. But we will be bringing you a report on some of the things we've done this year on May the 8th, another one at one of our June meetings. And then in talking with some of the rest of you, I think that as we head into the next school year, with me having a full year the belt, we probably will look at having, I think there's interest in maybe doing quarterly updates, maybe every 3 months or so, and giving you an update, not on the entire plan, but maybe a small component of some of our different categories and goals with that. So those are things to look forward to coming up on the horizon.
Very good. I think there's some good conversations to be had in there. Board of Education member reports. We just spent a week ago, week before last, I guess, was at the National School Board Conference.
Well, I will speak for Rachel and I because neither one of us had ever done this conference, and we will do things differently next year. And see what we can fix. It just seemed like there was a lot of duplicate work where we had to get expenses into the hotel, expenses into NSBA, and then we had to, the expenses came back from the hotel and we had credits. We're gonna work differently on this one.
It seemed pretty smooth on my end.
Yeah, on
so
our
I
end.
appreciate your work.
Yeah, exactly. On our end, we didn't see anything. We saw the smooth surface and above of the duck gliding across the pond. We didn't see the feet paddling below. Cause it was very smooth. It was quite frankly, the smoothest check-in I've ever had. So we checked in, they knew it, they gave us the stuff. It was just very easy. That was my experience. Is that what everyone had? Yeah. I didn't have, it's usually a phone call or two, but.
On a normal hotel, they give you a list and you complete everybody who's going to check in. But Rosen Center required that we do a page per person. It was a very
Well, that's
lengthy
interesting.
process. So I'm glad it went smooth.
Yeah, it was smooth. It went well. Gonna talk about what,
Yeah, how much do we want to do that, or do we want to do that some other time?
I can't do all mine in one night.
Yeah,
I don't wanna
there was a lot.
Yeah.
One
high level,
thought-
general,
yeah,
general,
one thought I had was maybe
Impressions.
even if we could do some kind of a Google form where we could say, I went to this session, like some key things. I think if I just had like a couple of really key things. One was, I went to this session called From Conflict and Controversy to Collaboration. And one of the things this district did, and it was all board members that were doing the session, they developed a board communication protocols. And it involves some of these things like visiting schools and stuff. And it wasn't policy, it wasn't procedure really. It was something that their individual board, they all collaborated, and then they all decided this is what we're going to abide by this. So then they were all accountable for treating each other respectfully. And they all shared in the decision making of this thing. So
operational agreements. I was in a session, they talked a lot about operational agreements.
yeah. So I thought that was really good. And then the superintendent evaluation thing I thought was really good. I also went to one on podcasting, which I thought was cool, but might have a discussion about that sometime. Just not something that they were talking about. The board could do a podcast. I think that would be a loaded gun, but but the superintendent at the one school district did a really great one. And then I think Brent, you said you went to that one last year about the district in California that
El
just
Cajon.
yeah, they had
They're
a
just-
culture budget and they just did these really fun things with their staff, and it really transformed their whole community into just a place where people like to be and want to be, and
Yep.
kind of focused on the joy. So
Yeah.
anyway, but there was a lot more. That's just kind of high level. So I think I was the only one that heard the Siri, the inventor of Siri talk on Monday morning, but that was a little mind blowing.
That's the one I just can't wait to tell Phil about. Not that one, but the session I went to Monday morning
Yeah.
on the Chat GPT software. Unbelievable. I mean, if you want to hear about it, I'd be glad to tell you. It makes your hair stand up, but at the same time, it's kind of exciting. They'll go ahead. They talking about how technology is widening the generation gap. And it's true. Look at the senators under the TikTok hearings. They have no idea what's going on with what's in technology. And he was saying, and this Jason Price did the session, and he said from in the 1900s, it took 100 to 200 years. I'm sorry, starting in the 1800s, it took 100 to 200 years to double technology. Now we're doing it in 72 days. He said, we're moving faster in our technology than our government and education can keep up with. It's moving so fast.
And it starts to become the education instead of the school.
Okay.
Anyway, he talked about this Chat GPT software. It came out in November. It had 100 million users in 2 months. Google Translate took 78 months. So Microsoft owns ChatGPT. They paid $11 billion for it. And this guy said it's going to take Google out of the market in 2 years. You will use Google for email and maps, and that's it, if they're still in business. So he explained how it worked. He said it's typical Google is predictive AI. It kind of, you start typing a word, it finishes it. This is generative AI. And it's, like I said, I think I said it's 500 times bigger now. The second version came out last month. It's 500 times larger in what it knows than what it knew in November. So the guy gets up there and he goes, explain blood pressure to me. And it pops it up like in a textbook, 3 or 4 paragraphs, exactly how blood pressure works, what causes it, what the things that can happen with it. And he said, well, explain it to me as a 5th grader. Boom, it rewrote it. So a 5th grader could understand it. And then he said, well, explain it to me as a cardiologist could read this. And it put it up there like a cardiologist could read it. Then he said, well, make me a meal that I can eat with a heart healthy diet and no lactose. Boom, it put a meal up there. He said, well, give me a menu plan for a week. Boom, right there instantly.
3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah. And then he said, well, give me the grocery list and sort it by aisle. Boom, right there. It was just crazy what it could
But
do.
Brent, isn't it, it's different from like a Google search because it doesn't come up like
There's no ads.
this website says this and this way.
No,
It
right.
puts it all together and then it gives you references at the bottom, right?
It's what it knows. It knows 40 languages. He said it will take over all the call centers. If you get a call from an automated call, the instant you answer, it's going to match your accent. You will not know that it's not somebody just down the street. He said it's just crazy. Anyway, it was just a lot to take in. But his thing was, he goes, kids don't need cursive anymore. Do kids need to know how to write? All they need to know is how to write the right question. Because they're going to get the answer and it'll be written correctly. I know, I don't agree with what he said.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of debate that happen around that, because what about critical thinking, right?
Yes, your critical thinking's out the window, you don't have to.
Well, but then they can change it can automatically change history and you don't ever know.
You wouldn't know. It could lie to you or be wrong and you don't know it. But that's what the other side of the coin. He just said, dude, this is going to get real interesting because like you said, it's outpaced how the government can regulate it and
there's
how education can deal with it. We don't know how to deal with that. It's like oh shoot. I was talking about because I think Elon Musk and some other people are trying to block this until they can figure out how to handle it. That's been in the headlines.
The founder of Siri wasn't quite as optimistic as that. What he was saying was that the one of the flaws in this AI that kind of accumulates everything together and writes something out is that if it doesn't know the answer, it makes it up.
Right.
And so there can be a lot of made up things in there. So, and he gave some examples of, just some simple things that you would ask it and it totally gave you the wrong answer, but it was very confident in its answer. So
we need to be teaching our kids that you can't just take everything on blind faith and,
Yeah. Maybe they'll bring back more.
Computer's not always right.
Yes.
Well, and to be able to defend it, that's the thing, is understand the thought process that went into developing whatever it is, the meal plan and to be able to defend it. That's a key piece of it.
but anyway, that was just important.
I'm good. That was just crazy.
So would our preference be that each board member writes out a summary or some thoughts about their NSB visit? And then Rachel puts it on Google Docs and then we have it all there.
Sure.
Including if you have any websites or anything that they took you to that you want to list, we can also post those.
Yeah, and I think to boil it down a little bit further, action items or not necessarily action items, but actionable topics. For example, and you've already scheduled this is about a strategic plan. I think an actionable item is to have, within our schedule, have when we're getting strategic plan updates at a regular frequency, and not the whole strategic plan, but parts of it. It was one of the sessions I attended talked about strategic plan and how critical it is for the board. It's always interesting because they start out these sessions and there'll be 200-300 people in there, and they'll say how many districts have a strategic plan, and 50-60 people might have a quarter to maybe a third of districts in that conference have strategic plans. And so I think it's important that we continue to maintain ours so that we have a vision of where we're going. I went to, I don't know, half a dozen or so different in the 2 days that I was there, presentations, and one of them I went to, or two of them I went to, talked a lot about roles and responsibilities, and I'd never seen it before, but they talked about how a citizen would respond, and then how a school board member would respond to questions and different situations. And I thought it was really interesting, because as a citizen, you speak for yourself. As a board, you're speaking for 7 different people. You're going to answer, citizens are going to answer questions with an opinion. Board members need to answer questions based on policy. And so and I can write this up, but it's really interesting. And it comes down to, I think we've all heard it many times, but when you think about the core responsibilities of the board, it's what are we going to do? It's what needs to be done. It's a mission, vision, goals, policies, and we spell out what needs to be done. And then administration, superintendent, our only employee, provides and develops kind of that how we're going to do it, identifies objectives and action plans and procedures and things like that. So I thought it was I'd never seen it presented in that way before, but I thought it was well done. And it really clarified things as far as roles and responsibilities of the board. But we can do that. We can, if you can send it, Candy, if you can send out link to a Google Doc, or we can create it and we'll go from there. Then we can share it. And I think the actionable items is an important piece, because it kind of boils down the 2 to 4 days that people were there into specific things.
So then do we plan to discuss this at another meeting then? Because I feel like that's the biggest part, is all of us discussing it.
I agree.
It has to be an open discussion.
And even if we did it on the fifth Monday, I think that's a real good opportunity. I mean, I could talk for an hour and a half, but one of the things they little tagline that they had is to inspect what you expect. And I thought it was kind of a light bulb moment for me. It's like, yeah, if you're going to expect something have an expectation, you need to inspect the outcomes, the inputs, the outputs, and the benefit and the value created by that expectation. And always be refining. If things don't add value, why do them, right? And so I think that's a good idea, Nicole,
I think too, some of the threads that kind of run through all of them is you hear about what other boards are doing and how they operate. Like, they may only have one meeting a month, but they do a lot of committee work, or they do more where they do these little cohorts of smaller groups of board members, and they meet. And so it's interesting to compare sizes of districts, and kind of that in the midst of maybe some topic that's totally different than what you're talking about. You hear the process too.
And I think one of the real value, why I think I get energized by this conference, is you get to talk from people all over the country. Well, I spent an hour and a half talking to a board president and a superintendent of a school in Canada, and how they did what they call it a student senate. It's kind of like our superintendent student group, but it was what the kind of the logic they'd gone through and what they were doing. And so it's those kind of side conversations you get a lot of value out of as well. So
I thought it was neat how many topics and programs came up in sessions or in conversation that you got to try this, you got to try this. Like, we're doing that. We're doing it well. That was really, you just got to sit there and smile. Yeah, I know what that is. That was fun.
It is fun, especially when they bring up questions. Do you have this or
Oh,
are
yeah.
you doing this? And you kind of look around the room and
There's just a couple hands. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Well, a little preview from me. I sat through one called Transformational Learning. I think a couple of us sat through it about CTE and what our friends at DLR have helped accomplish with different buildings across Missouri and Colorado and Kalamazoo, Michigan. So it was very amazing, great information. Then I think you were in it as well, sir. The Board of Education being influential in the role of educator retention. And that engagement from your board is the lead measure to retention. So I thought that was really interesting. Done by Emporia State professor. So very cool. And a Spring Hill alumni was in that session, I believe.
Yes. She's a board member in Emporia.
Yes, so I thought that was really cool. And then the last one I sat through, the last one on my days are confused there, Sunday, I believe, was about school safety and a superintendent from a school shoot that had been the superintendent during a school shooting that spoke. And the steps they took after it, what they learned from it, was pretty astounding and pretty awesome, so. That one was really great. And she had she'd been through a school shooting in 2018, so however many years ago that is. But in the audience was a young man that was a school board member that had just been through a school shooting days before. So hearing some of that, different states, different approaches, all of that, and what they would do going forward or what they plan to do, all of that. So very great information that we can think about.
I think my most exciting one was a guy, and we'll talk about it later, but at 17, he could not read or spell, went on to get his college degree and his master's. And he studies high trauma people that are highly productive. And he's made a program for those type of people to get through school and be successful. It's pretty neat. There's a whole lot more to it. Yeah, he was a wild man up there. He could have been a comedian. He was pretty funny.
Brent, you always pick some of the best ones, honestly.
Just lucky.
Good. Any other reports?
I attended a chamber event a few weeks ago in regards to mental health and the fentanyl pandemic or whatever fentanyl issues that we're having, whatever we're calling it. It was put on by a wonderful woman that's helping promote the 988 hotline for mental health, hoping that she can come in here and give us our staff some education, or maybe she already has. But really great information put on by the chamber, so thank you. And some of our counselors were there as well. Along with, we went to the state of the county luncheon last week. Lots happening, guys. We got some great things happening in Johnson County. But one of the things that hold on, let me find my notes. I just looked at it. 1 in 4 Kansans work in Johnson County. So I know that doesn't have a lot to do with education, but it does have a lot to do with our schools and where hopefully we can keep getting great teachers. So. And that's all for me.
Guess I didn't realize Johnson County was was 25% of the state's population.
They work.
Work in Johnson. Well, there's a lot of business. All right, any other reports? All right, moving on to the superintendent reports.
Okay, few brief items. The state of the Spring Hill Breakfast, which is hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. Their annual breakfast is tomorrow morning at the Civic Center on Webster. I know we have numerous staff from USD 230 that will be represented. Always was able to attend last year, even before my official duties started. And again, it was a lot of good information there about in terms of the many things that are occurring across our community. The legislature of Kansas currently is on recess this week, and I believe next week they'll return, 2 weeks from, I think, today. Depending on, a lot of the key bills that impact education, the special education funding, the bill that we had put forward, the 2040 to get current year funding for growing districts is an option. And then, of course, the critical one, annual base state aid per pupil increase, which is the cost of living adjustment, which with the way pricing are is really crucial. And when they left for recess last week, a lot of mixed signals as to, what's going to really in the end when they come back be approved. You talk to one legislator, they'll tell you, oh, this is going to happen, but you talk to another one with a different spin. Would just say that those are three critical areas: the base critical state aid increased for cost of living, special education funding, and then as well as the current year are all very crucial to USD 230, especially as we go and enter negotiations here in the coming months. We really cannot and will not move forward too quickly on negotiations until we have a more clarity to the budget, specifically the education budget. I have been in close contact and also on a daily basis with Representative Thomas, who's keeping me informed on much of the legislation. And then I've been told him while his legislative recess, if he wants to come and visit some classrooms, I'd welcome that, along with, the chair of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Baumgartner, who is also represents USD 230. I've also reached out to her and invited her also, if she has time on the recess, to feel free to reach out to me. And I'd love to offer her the opportunity to come visit our district and visit some classrooms and talk to us about some of the key areas that are crucial to us moving forward, and hopefully get, strong support, but kind of wait and see in the coming weeks what's going to transpire. As Director Milius mentioned about some of the sessions, they were very timely, especially those on school safety. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we did have quite a bit of feedback from parents, that just either sent an email or just a phone call about, hey, concerned about school safety because of the tragedy that we had, in Nashville. And I took the time to also in my bi-weekly notes to families, led 1 week right after that with the Nashville shooting, and just kind of reminding parents that safety is something we put forth as a concerted effort to keep our campuses safe on a daily basis. We have many layers of, precaution that have been implemented over a period of time. Everything, from cameras to, our buzzing systems at each foyer. We are fortunate to have a great partnership with Johnson County Community College and have 2 full-time dedicated school resource officers that are always here to keep an eye out and alert and kind of have eyes and ears and report with students to help, alert us to potential problems. And of course, the board was very proactive a couple meetings ago. And we went a step further and have approved the purchase and implementation of the crisis alert system through Centegix. And we're in the process of doing all the technical aspects of that to get that operational in the coming weeks. So that's ready to go, that we have training on that set up, and we're good, hopefully are good to go with that at the start of our school year, if at all possible. Of course, as you can expect, that is cutting edge technology, and especially with the more tragedies that happen, the busier they get. So it was very good that we got in a couple months ago, because we're able to be pretty much, not at the top, but near the top of their schedule to help us get up and running with that. And I could say I've also talked to our building principals and have asked them to, as they communicate the next time and whether that some may have already done it, but as they communicate through their own written communication through newsletters or email correspondence with their families, that they kind of take a moment and reiterate to parents again, what are just some of the additional specific security measures that are taken within their respective school, what frequency is, the types of drills that they engage in and what some of those, especially ones that maybe deal more with the intruder type dilemma, what those look like, because they do vary a little bit by building as well as, by the age group as well. So again, we take it seriously. We never can rest, and you all have definitely proven that you're open to many ideas that come aboard to make sure we keep our campuses safe. So that's my superintendent's report.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Luttrell. Moving on, do we need an executive session this evening?
We do need an executive session.
Okay, Mr. President, I move that the board recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual or individuals under coma. Those to be in the session include Board of Education members, Superintendent of Schools, Assistant Superintendent, and administrators and staff as requested. How much time do we need?
Depends on how much you all want to ask questions, but I'd say let's start out with 30 minutes.
Okay.
And
The executive session to begin at 9:10 and to resume no later than 9:40 in this place.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded to move to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel under coma. Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
approved.
Session. Next agenda item is an action item for approval of the new assistant principal for Spring Hill High School and current coordinator for teaching and learning to administrative contract, changing her to an administrative contract.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, I move we approve the new assistant principal for Spring Hill Middle School and also move the coordinator of teaching and learning to an administrative contract with additional responsibilities as recommended.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the new assistant principal at Spring Hill Middle School and also moving the coordinator of teaching and learning to an administrative contract. Any final comment or question?
Just reminded him. Not to forget you.
Oh, yeah. Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Updike.
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
approved.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to our next action item, which is approval of employment of certified personnel.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve continuing contracts for certified staff as recommended by the superintendent of schools.
Second the motion.
It's moved and seconded to approve continuing contracts for certified staff as recommended by the superintendent of schools. Any final conversation or comment? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
approved.
Very good, thank you. We